Hello, hello. Can you even hear me? Probably not. Okay, it is time to catch up on court. Last time we left off was Friday. We finished up Friday morning, and then I had to skedaddle and do some things. We had an event this past weekend that we had to prep and pack and move all the things for. So we missed Friday afternoon, and also we missed today. So we are back in catch-up mode. So we have to catch up on court. So I have it queued up, the afternoon session from Friday. I haven't looked at anything. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. I haven't looked at anything at all because of this past weekend was crazy. So I haven't seen anything. I'm ready to get back into it. Let's just see where we left off so that our brains get refreshed. The jury was going on a view. They went on a view. And what I assumed to have happened is they went on the view, had lunch, and came back. There were the rules. The prosecution and the defense had their opening statements for going on the view of 34 Fairview Road, where John O'Keefe was found unresponsive, unconscious in the snow. It was snowing. We know it was snowing. We heard from Katie McLaughlin. That was a bit of an intense witness on the stand moment. There was energy and information that the defense wanted in about Katie's relationship with Caitlin Albert, the daughter of the homeowner of 34 Fairview Road. It did not get in. Nothing got on. Nothing that they wanted essentially got in, except for the basis of that she was aware that this person existed. So, and went on bikini style vacations with them. So, anywho, let's just jump into it. I got my pen ready. I'm exhausted. I'm so tired, but that is okay. My mouse is not plugged in, but that is okay. We have catching up to do. So let's get into it. All right, court is returning after the view.
Please be seated. This court is in session.
All right, so jurors, I want to remind you of the instructions that I gave you before we went on the view, and then I have a caution for you. So we took a view today, the purpose of which was to help you to better understand the evidence, which you'll hear during the course of the trial, and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. The view that you took is part of this case, and the observations that you made while on the view may be used and considered in your deliberations. Remember that I told you that what you were to do on that view is best summarized as simply stop and look. Your responsibility was to see the place, observe it carefully, and remember what you saw. You were cautioned that while on the view, you were not to take any notes or photographs, and that you were not to conduct any independent investigation while we were there or at any time during the trial. So independent investigation includes, but is not limited to, any measurements that you may have taken or attempted to take. So to the extent that any of you did that, you must totally disregard it, because you must find the facts from the evidence presented to you in this courtroom.
Were people taking notes?
So with that, Mr. Lally, do you have a witness for us?
What?
Yes, sure.
You said not to.
We'll call Mr. Gregory Woodbury.
I gotta think out. Sherry. All right, I missed who they were calling, but we are going to, the mouse isn't plugged in, are going to pop this into 1.25 speed, and maybe even 1.5, just because we know Mr. Lally is a bit of a paced speaker. And I don't want to say slow, just pace. He runs at his own pace, and it's a little slower than what I like. I like boom, boom, boom.
I do. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Ron. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Greg Woodbury, Woodbury.
And what do you do for work, sir?
Lieutenant paramedic on the Canton Fire Department.
Another
And
paramedic.
how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire Department?
About 24 years now.
How long have you had the rank of lieutenant in the Canton Fire Department?
That's been 8 years now.
Now, prior to working with Canton Fire Department, what, if any, other work did you have within that same sort of field?
Prior to being on Canton Fire, I was an EMT paramedic in the North Shore area.
And if you could just, with regard to your working as a paramedic and a firefighter, specifically as far as being a paramedic, what, if any, sort of specialized training did you receive in regard to, or certifications did you receive in regard to being a paramedic?
So after I got my
Tell us
EMT,
about the training.
when I went to
We don't know
paramedic school, I
anything
went to
about
Northeastern
it.
University. It was a 1-year full-time program.
And following, you successfully completed that program, is that correct?
Yes.
So he did a
Is there
1-year
any
full
sort of,
time,
continuing educational component or recertification
Instead of,
component
like,
in regard to your
16,
paramedic
18
certification?
months.
Yeah,
at
every
night
2 years,
school.
paramedics have to recertify. We're required to get so many hours of continuing education.
Really?
To
Who
recertify
knew
every
that?
2 years.
Who knew that information to recertify
If I
every
could,
2 years?
turn your attention to
We did.
the date of January 28th,
After
2022
date.
to January 29th, 2022.
Mhm.
Were you working with the Canton Fire Department on that day?
Yes.
And what kind of shift were you working on that occasion, if you recall?
It was a
I'm going to
24-hour
say
shift.
24-hour
A
shift.
24-hour shift within the Canton Fire Department is what to what?
It's 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next day.
Now, turning your attention to the 29th, at what point do you sort of get up and start to begin your day at the fire station?
So a normal day, sorry, was that my beginning of the shift you're talking about or the end of the shift?
Second day.
Okay, so the second part of the shift. Normally we get up at 6 for the officers, but I got up a little earlier then because we had the snowstorm coming in. So I had to make sure everything was shoveled. I think I got up
blizzard-like
about maybe 5,
conditions.
check the apron of the area in front of the station, and make sure the walkways were clear.
And
So
when you
from
got
what I
checked
can
out,
tell is that they all sort of got
It
up
had
at the
been
same
snowing.
time.
There was blizzard
And they
type
were
conditions
like,
coming
look
in.
at all this, look at all that snow. We have to
So it was
shovel.
a decent level of snowfall there. Let's see, maybe
We have to
2-3 inches
shovel.
on the ground at that time.
And as far as with reference to that, what, if anything, did you do to?
I think we can move quickly through this part of it.
Yeah.
The cleaning the apron.
I wasn't getting to that.
Okay.
As far as that particular date or that,
The judges, we know what they were doing, sir. We know what they were doing. We know they were shoveling the snow. They were cleaning the apron. They were getting the sidewalks. That is hilarious. She said, keep moving.
or that shift, how were you assigned within the firehouse?
I was lieutenant on engine 4.
And with respect to that, at some point shortly after 6 a.m., did you receive dispatch to a call?
Yes, yeah, we're dispatched to a call for a person in the snow.
And did you respond to that call, sir?
Yes, I did.
And you were assigned to the engine, is that correct?
Correct.
Who, if anyone else, was assigned to the engine that day with you on engine?
So we had Cade McLaughlin and Frank Walsh were my 2 engine crew.
And in addition to yourself and your engine, what if any other sort of vehicles or apparatuses?
Ambulance one also responded with us. So that was Tony Flamati, Matt Kelly, and Tim Nuttall had also hopped on the ambulance. He was coming in the shift in the morning, came in early to beat the storm.
And do you recall where the call was in regard to what the address was?
I don't remember the address offhand, but it was not that far away in the district.
And when you arrived in the engine, when you first arrived on scene, as you were arriving on scene, what, if anything, did you sort of see as upon your arrival?
So the police were already there. We were approaching the scene. I could see several people off to the side in the yard doing something. So we went to investigate that.
When you say off to the side, was that to your left, your right, or something?
So the way I was approaching the street, it was on the left-hand side.
And when you indicate you see some group of people, is that correct?
Yeah, there was a few people around. I don't remember exactly how many or what they were doing.
And when you start to make your way over there, what, if any, when you arrive on scene,
Yep.
what is sort of the first thing you do?
So we went to evaluate the patient. I believe someone had started CPR prior to us getting there. So we went to continue that.
When you say someone had started CPR prior to you,
I don't remember the particular individual that was doing it as we arrived.
my only question, sir, so it's someone outside of your department, correct?
Yeah.
And do you know if it was one of the police officers or someone else?
I don't remember.
Now, obviously, you're dispatched in response to an unresponsive man, correct?
Yes.
And at the time that you're arriving on scene, you say you see sort of a cluster of people. Were you able to see that unresponsive male at that point?
Not in the vehicle, not until I exited the vehicle.
And at some point, much later or subsequently, did you come to learn the identity of the unresponsive male or the patient that you were involved in?
Afterwards, they told me yes. At the time, I did not know.
And what did you learn his
She
name?
seems like a
Michelle?
silly question. At some point, did you learn who
I'm sorry,
it
I'm a little
was?
nervous and blanking right now.
Yeah.
Was it Mr. John O'Keefe?
Yes, correct.
And when you first came over to where Mr. O'Keefe was on the ground, is that correct?
Yes, he was.
What kind of position was his body in when you first observed?
He was lying supine on the ground, like on his back. He was parallel to the street, about 8 feet away from the snowbank.
The
And
snowbank
in
from when it
reference
was
to
the
that,
road
as
when the
far as
road
snow
was
concerned,
plowed.
what if any snow did you
I
observe
need
on or
plow
around?
information.
He was covered with snow, and there was snow around the area.
Talk about covered. Tell me about covered with
And so
snow.
from a treatment of Mr. O'Keefe as a patient, what is sort of the first thing that you did or
We started CPR, or CCR, sorry, immediately. Someone went to go get a board to get him onto that so we can get him onto the stretcher and move him to the ambulance. And then someone else is trying to get the backstory, trying to figure out the scenario that we're dealing with.
if I could just stop you for a moment. So you mentioned CCR, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the difference between CCR versus
CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So that is when you're helping someone breathe. CCR is when we first get to a scene, they changed the protocols a little while ago. So we don't have to give respirations right away. We can just do compressions. It's a little more effective to get the blood flowing quickly.
Thanks.
Okay, that's a new
As far
thing.
as
That's a
your
new
involvement in patient
learning.
care,
We're
sort of
learning.
What was that during that initial phase where Mr. O'Keefe was supine on the ground? What was your involvement in patient care at that point?
I was assisting with the CPR, making sure everyone else is doing their task. As a lieutenant, I kind of got to manage the other people and make sure everyone's on target for what they're supposed to be doing.
And during that initial time that you're outside in the area where Mr. O'Keefe is on the ground, what any observations did you make as far as injuries to Mr. O'Keefe at that time?
Outside on the ground, he was covered in snow. So we're really not doing any sort of secondary survey initially. The primary concern is the primary survey, which is airway, breathing, circulation. He was not breathing. He had no pulse. So our primary concern is to get that going.
And at some point, are
Heart
you
was not
able to get
working.
him from the ground to the back of the ambulance?
Yeah, we moved him onto a longboard, then moved him from the longboard onto the stretcher, and then brought the stretcher over the ambulance and loaded him in there.
You mentioned at some points upon your sort of initial arrival at the patient that different people were tasked with different things, right?
Yes.
And someone was tasked with trying to get sort of what you termed the backstory, is that correct?
Yes.
Why is that important?
So when you have someone unconscious, unresponsive, you want to know when they were last well, the last breathing, last seen, trying to figure out why someone is on the ground. There are different reasons of why they could be there, trying to figure that out. Normal people don't
What
lay down in the
caused him
snow.
to stop breathing?
So
What
I'm
caused
trying to
him to
evaluate
be?
the reason the person was unconscious.
What happened?
And so you're able to get him on, Mr. O'Keefe, onto a
We did
stretcher
this
into the
to
back of the
him.
ambulance, correct?
Yes,
Fair to say that the lighting in the back of the ambulance is better than it was outside.
correct.
And when you're in the back of the ambulance, are you able to then do or participate in that secondary survey?
Yeah, we started doing a secondary survey after we started getting good compressions going. Someone's working on the intubation, and then one of the procedures is to strip off the clothes and evaluate the person.
And if you recall, how were the clothes removed?
I don't recall exactly which method they used. Typically, we cut them off, but I'm not sure if they did that or they just pulled them off.
And what, if anything, do you recall as to Mr. O'Keefe's clothing and sort of what he was wearing when he was found?
I really wasn't paying attention to it. The primary concern is trying to revive him.
The person, not the
To
clothes.
that secondary survey, as far as
I feel like they're
the
going
back
at
of
the angle of
ambulance,
like
what, if anything, did you observe as far as injuries?
it's
on Mr.
almost
O'Keefe's
his
back?
fault.
He had a hematoma or a bruising.
You know?
The right eye was very prominent.
Like it's almost his
there was
fault
some
because like he
scratches
wasn't wearing a
on the right
coat.
forearm.
He wasn't wearing snow
it was-
boots.
Most of the external
I
injuries
don't-
we noted.
I don't know. This questioning
And
I
now,
don't
in
think
addition,
does
so as far as people on
justice
scene, there were
to
a number of
the
different firefighters from your
Yes.
department.
to
You
the
mentioned
acts that
the
these
police were on scene
paramedics
when you arrived,
provided
is that
when
correct?
John was down.
Beyond police and fire, what, if any, other individuals did you observe at some point when you were on scene?
There was some other civilians there. I really wasn't paying attention to them.
Right.
They're not hurt. They're not injured. They're not the ones they care about. They're not the police.
Now, with reference to that backstory that you were talking about, at any point in time, either outside of the ambulance or inside of the ambulance, who, if anyone, was tasked by you or anyone else to try to obtain that backstory?
I think Katie McLaughlin was the one that obtained the backstory.
And if you know, was there any other conversation that you were present for between any of your other firefighters and any of those civilians?
That was primarily when she relayed to us the information that she had obtained. We were trying to figure out the scenario of why he was found unconscious, unresponsive.
me ask you this way. So as far as arrival at the patient when he's on the ground.
Yep.
Who gets there first? You and the other individuals in the engine or the firefighters in the ambulance?
We both responded from the same station at the same time. The engine's in the front, the ambulance usually in the rear. So I believe we pulled over, the ambulance pulled over at the same time as us. I believe C5 went as well, which is the captain. He was also responding with us.
So within seconds of each other.
Now, as far as the person that firefighter McLaughlin spoke to, what if
It
anything
might have
did
been
you
a
know
little
about
more
that person?
because of the
At that time, I knew
snow.
nothing. I knew there was someone that had been with him. She relayed the information of what she had heard to us.
And the information that firefighter McLaughlin, without reference to what it was, but the information that firefighter McLaughlin was able to obtain,
Mhm.
did she communicate that to you and the other firefighters in the ambulance?
Yes, yeah, she came in the ambulance, told us what she had heard.
What did she hear? What did she say she heard? He can't ask that.
As
Tell
far as
me
the
what she
information
said. Here's it.
that firefighter McLaughlin provided, did that comport with what you were observing as far as injuries to Mr. O'Keefe?
Objection.
Sustained.
Okay,
Can lay a
defense.
foundation if
Now, as far as, again, the injuries that you observed to Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance were what?
It was the bruising of the right eye and the scratches on the forearm.
And what, if anything, did firefighter McLaughlin indicate to you had been told to her?
That someone said she had hit him, and he was last seen. Objection.
sustained, that will be stricken.
May we approach them?
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I think she had a good lunch. Her tone is definitely different. And by her, I mean the judge. The past couple of days, it has felt to me that the judge was, I don't want to say showing bias, but it felt a little weighted unevenly when it came to just like her tone and her responses. But that I'm just a person. I am not a lawyer. And so just like the jury who are just people and like non-lawyer people, that's how I'm going into this and reacting to it and feeling it out. But it seems like that's not the case this afternoon. I myself am sleepy, but so we had when we came back from the midday break from the View, the judge made mention about the possibility that one or more jurors did something that they weren't supposed to, which was take notes or do some sort of independent researching of the case outside of just looking and taking in what they were seeing. That is very interesting. She didn't give us any more. She just kind of, I would say, slightly admonished the jury for not listening to the rules. They didn't make mention of any alternates happening. Hey, Ray. Taking the pup to the vet for his weigh-in. I am so excited to see how big that puppy is. So yeah, it was like a slight admonishment to the jury about quite possibly doing what they weren't supposed to, which is taking notes or like personal research into the case or maybe talking to
So we always try
somebody.
to check and make sure that your lunch is here before we take a break. I'm told that it is. So we will take a lunch break. We'll see everybody here ready to start right at 2:00.
Okay. All right. So they're taking their lunch break. I guess they did not take a lunch break before. So let me turn the volume off and we will just scoot right into the next after lunch when the sleepies kick in. We still are in 1.25 speed
All right.
because
Why don't we get the
Time.
lieutenant back up here? Thank you.
Lieutenant Greg Woodbury. Back to the
You're still
spot.
under oath.
Okay.
You're still under. He said okay. You're still under oath, so no lying. No lying, sir.
Go right ahead, Mr. Lally.
So
No
Lieutenant
lying.
Woodbury,
Ooh.
turning your attention back to the treatment of Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance. Right?
Yes.
With respect to that, you testified that you don't recall sort of specifically anything as far as clothing for Mr. O'Keefe. Is that correct?
I was not paying attention to the clothing.
And so to that point, what were you paying attention to at that?
Primarily, the big issue was doing the CCR, then to CPR. We're trying to resuscitate the person as best we can. We know with the hypothermic patient, it's very difficult. It's a longer treatment protocol than a typical cardiac arrest because we have to do the CPR for an extended period of time. We have to get the patient warmed up. So the clothing is just quickly removed versus examined or looked at. And the focus was on getting compressions done. Someone was trying to intubate, getting a line started. So that's what we're mainly focused on.
As far as treatment is concerned, what, if any, sort of interplay or intersection is there between a cardiac arrest and a hypothermic patient?
When someone's hypothermic and in cardiac arrest, we can't declare them dead or passed on until they've been warmed up. A lot of times with hypothermic patients, they can appear to be dead when they're still actually alive. So there has been instances where people have woken up in morgues that were hypothermic when their body warmed up a little bit. So we have to be very cautious, very careful about treating them as much as we can, as careful as we can. We can't shake them too much, can't move them too much. So it's getting the blood circulating and then starting ventilating after a few minutes.
Woken up in morgues?
Yep. What, if any,
No
sort of,
way.
based on your
That's
training experience, what, if
crazy.
any, sort of protocols are? Well, let me ask you this. Were you doing chest compressions throughout the entirety of this interaction with the patient?
No, chest compressions, most people do them about 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, it's very tiring to do chest compressions, so we swap off every few minutes. So a different person will come in and do the compressions. They'll do it for a little while, go into a different task. Someone else will come in and do compressions.
Is that sort of protocol that you followed in this instance?
Yes. Yes, we were rotating the
Let him
person doing
finish his
compressions.
questions before you answer.
And the ambulance at some point leaves the scene and goes to a hospital. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know what hospital, Mr.
Good Samaritan Medical Center.
If you could just wait till
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
questions.
Yeah.
You've been prepped real
Good
good,
Samaritan,
but like,
Good Samaritan Medical Center.
And did you go along for that ambulance ride?
No, I did not.
Where did you go?
So as the lieutenant on the engine, I stayed with the engine. I detailed my 2 other engine personnel to the ambulance. So they went with the 2 engine personnel, the 2 regular people on the ambulance, as well as an additional person. Timmy Nuttall was the extra person for that one.
Timmy.
And so you take the engine and go with it.
I went back to the station.
And at some point shortly after that, are you called back to the roadway of Fairview Road?
Yes.
And same general area of Fairview Road?
Yes, same address.
And how is it that you get from the station back to Fairview?
So we had struck a box to cover the personnel that we had detailed. That means we send out a page looking for additional people to come in. We had Sam Pock come in. So he was my engine driver, and I was in the lieutenant seat. We responded back in engine 4.
And the ambulance that had been there on Fairview Road with you previously was at Good Samaritan?
Yes. Yeah. A call like that takes an extended period of time, even at the hospital,
Finish
to
the
assist them there.
question,
So we had to get an ambulance from station 2.
And if you know, who was on that ambulance from Station 2?
That was Jason Becker and Dan Whitley.
Now, with reference to this particular call, what, if anything,
Jason and Dan.
was this secondary dispatch with regards?
So this call was for a Section 12, which is someone in having a psychological issue.
Section
And do you know who
12,
that Section 12 was in
psychological issue.
Yeah, this was for Karen Reed.
And at some point, you go back to the scene along with the engine and the second ambulance from Station 2.
Yeah, so the engine got there first. The ambulance coming from another station, so it was a couple extra minutes before they got there.
Don't pan
And when
away.
you arrived, who, if anyone else, was
What
sort of
are we doing?
on scene on Fairview Road at that?
The police were still on scene; they had never left. So
Police
initially
never
it was
left,
me,
okay.
Sam Pock, and the police. So I went up to try to get the backstory of why we're doing a Section 12 and what was going on.
And at some point, well, when you first arrived, without regard to what was said to you, but who, if anyone, do you speak with to sort of try to gain this information or backstory?
When I got onto the scene, I talked to the police that was there.
Who'd you talk
Yeah,
to, sir?
this
The police officer who was
Police
there?
officer, yes. Sorry,
And do you recall specifically who that police officer was?
I really did not pay attention to the individual officer.
Okay, this is good because
And,
this is where
at some point,
Karen
you
gets
have a
sent to
conversation.
the
What, any
hospital.
conversations do you have with the patient? This the defendant history.
So it was when we identified Karen Reed as the patient, the ambulance arrived shortly after. We started talking to her and trying to get her into the ambulance to talk to her further.
And just to be clear for the records, when you say Miss Reed, you see her in the courtroom today?
Yes, she's right over there.
That's a record reflect identification of the identified witness?
Yes.
Yeah, she's
Now,
right
with
over there.
respect to the defendant, Miss
What
Reed,
she's
where
wearing?
is she sort of when you first make contact with her on scene when you come back?
In the general vicinity of where the police cars are.
And
Police
what is
cars
sort of the
supposedly
purpose
never
of this
move, I
initial
guess.
conversation that you're having with this group?
For Section 12, that's when someone's made threats to them, harm themselves or others. So I just had to judge her mental ability at the time and see if she was a threat to us and how much of a threat she was to herself. So just a quick evaluation, see how her behavior was.
And what, if any, observations did you make of her during your quick conversation?
She appeared very distraught, very upset. Initially just trying to explain the situation to her about going to the hospital with the Section 12, and she was resistant to that.
And so when you say she was resistant to that, what if anything, did she say or do to?
Please,
She did not want to go.
Hold on. You cannot talk over each other, and the objection's overruled.
Please go ahead.
So what was the question again, please?
Okay, hold on. Yeah. Stop talking over him. Let him finish his question, please. So he said that Karen, he was talking to Karen about going to the hospital on Section 12, and she didn't want to go. I don't know many people who would, especially in a mindset that was firing off self-harm or just other person harm ideals and ideas and words and energy like that. I don't know anyone who would be like, oh yeah, let's go to the hospital for sure. Like that's not where your mind is. So if that is true that she was talking about self-harm, I'm pretty sure there would be a bit, I don't want to say a fight, but a bit of resistance to going to the hospital. Now, I want to hear if there was a mental health professional other than a lieutenant paramedic or paramedics and cops on site for someone who is claiming self-harm. Where's the mental health professional? Where's the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the social worker, someone who is trained in that field on site for a called in Section 12? Hey, we got, possible Section 12. We need everyone here. Okay, well, we have police who are scary and threatening. We have paramedics who want to take you away. We have the fire department in a big truck making a lot of noise. And we have blizzard-like conditions, and her boyfriend has already gone to the hospital, unresponsive, heart not beating, and hypothermic, and bloodied and bruised eye. Where's the mental health professional? This only happened 2 years ago.
So when you say she was resistant to that, what if anything, did she say or do to?
She did not want to go.
Hold on. You cannot talk over each other, and the objection's overruled.
Please go ahead.
So what was the question again, please?
Yeah. So what if anything, when you say she was resistant, what if anything did she communicate to you, or observations did you make in regard to that?
She did not want to go to the hospital, and she didn't think she needed any assistance.
How so? What did she
do? And what, if
do?
anything, are you you mentioned you were explaining sort of the process to her. What, if anything, are you saying in that explanation?
Well, once Section 12 gets written, it's written by the police. Once it's written, we are required to transport to the hospital. Section 12 means that they believe you're a threat to yourself or others. So you have to get evaluated at the hospital by the hospital staff there to see how mentally stable you are.
Now, at this time of this conversation, what, if anything, did you know as far as the relationship between Ms. Reed and the prior patient, Ms. Wilkie?
So
I knew they had a relationship. I wasn't sure if they were.
So I'm just concerned. So cops can just write and call in a Section 12 on anyone that they feel like, so they're having a hard time with who she believes her boyfriend is dead. Like if she's in the moment, her boyfriend just died, and she is reacting in the way that she's going to, allegedly naturally react. Cops can just call a Section 12, like I don't want to say you're crazy, but like they can kind of title you as such, like you need emergency help right now. Like I'm in shock, sure, but so they can just do it. So the moment cops say Section 12, it's to the hospital you go. So that they just have like free reign. Where is the mental health professional making this judgment? Because from the cops, from the Stevens that were the first few witnesses, I don't see them as being trained in any sort of mental health evaluation field. what? I need more. I
Or
need
if they were
more.
married or engaged
I
or
need
what their
more.
status was, but I knew she was did have a strong relationship with him.
Partner.
And in reference to Mr. O'Keefe, during your conversation with Ms. Reed, what, if anything, was she asking or saying in reference to Mr. O'Keefe?
She kept repeating, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" She seemed very concerned about that. We're trying to explain to her that we cannot declare him dead. He's being evaluated. He's being treated. They're trying to treat.
She seemed very concerned about that. I would be too. I think I would be too. Is he? Yeah, I think I would be too. Would you not be concerned about living or not living?
him the best they can.
And as far as
She
when
seemed
she's
very
stating
concerned
these
about
things to you,
that.
is this,
No shit.
as far as the sort of tonality of her voice while she's saying these things, can you describe that?
She was very up and down. It was a repetitive conversation with her. She's obviously experiencing a lot of different emotions. So just her emotional state was all over the place.
Hi, Crystalline. How are you?
And as far as this sort of second time that you're on scene, about how long period of time are we talking?
That was about between 15 and 20 minutes.
And as
This
far
questioning
as
is making me a little
your
upset.
conversation with Ms. Reed, where did she go? Did you stay with her sort of the entire time that she was on scene that second time, or?
Because she was resistant, we're trying to get
Let
her to voluntarily go.
him finish
If someone
the question.
voluntarily goes, even with the section written, they're released a lot quicker. So we're trying to convince her to go, be willing to go with us versus being forced. If at some point we have to actually force her to go against her will, then it's going to be a much longer hospital stay. So our main goal with staying on the scene so long was to try to get her willingly to go. Just makes her experience much better.
And just to be clear, when you say we, who specifically are you?
It was me, Dan Whitley, Jason Becker were the ones talking to her in the back of the ambulance.
When you clear, or when you leave.
So
the scene,
three
where is
men
Ms. Reed at that point?
So the
hovering
ambulance
over
transported her to
you.
a Good Samaritan. We also
Wait, I just need to set the scene. You're basically forced is a strong term, but you're forced into an ambulance as an early middle-aged woman, I'll say, or very early middle-aged woman. And you have three men saying you have to go to the hospital. I don't know verbatim, but you got to go to the hospital. Three men are I just have to say that feels a little okay. Section 12, male or female. If it's a female, like if it's a woman, wouldn't there be a female mental health professional? It just feels a little better. It just feels a little bit more safe. Like the whole thing, if you had to choose between, if you're in the woods and you had to choose between a man and a bear to be alone in the woods with, and everyone's choosing bear, I would be frantic if I did not know if my significant other was alive or dead. No one is answering me. They're making me leave on my own fruition. Like, just go away, not go to the hospital, or we'll transport you to the hospital with them. Or who are you? Like, what's your relationship? There's no one there calming her. Like, no one went to the side and did anything for her. The one person on the scene that was frantic, no one did anything for her while all of this was going down. It was just, yes, of course, yes, help the person who is down. But hello, like, clearly there's some sort of relationship here. The police are just policing. They're not doing, I don't know. This is all feeling very icky to me. Where's the mental health professional? Where's the woman who's coming in and saying, girl, this is what's happening and this is what's going to happen. And I know we both don't want it to happen, but we have to, take this step by step just because of the things that you're like. Where's the calming nature of it? Where's the de-escalation? No one is de-escalating it, because it seems like it was all at the 10. She left because she was told to leave, and then she came back and it was still at a 10, and then they section 12'd her.
The detailed Sampock as the driver.
I need
So
more
the gentleman who was
information.
driven, or the firefighter that driven you in the engine to the scene that drives the ambulance away.
Yes,
Would
correct.
you say his name again, please?
Sam Pock.
Same way.
Sam Pock.
Spell it, please.
Uh,
Last name.
P-O-C-H is the last
Oh,
name.
okay. Thank you.
3 men and Karen in an ambulance saying, you gotta go to the ambulance. You gotta go to the hospital.
Thanks. I have no further questions.
You're
Okay.
saying self-harm stuff.
Thank
You
you.
gotta go to the hospital.
Good
I don't
afternoon,
know
sir.
how they said it. I don't know the words that they're saying. Maybe they're trying to de-escalate it, but it's
Mr.
just
Wicker, you and I have never
from
met or
this, it
spoken
feels
before.
icky.
No.
And if I was one of those jurors,
I
I'd
know
be
you
like,
Said
what?
you were nervous, so I'm going to try and make
Okay.
this fairly brief,
Thank you.
sir. I just have a couple of areas that I'd like to go
Okay.
with you with.
All right,
So
cross-examination.
with your interaction with Karen Reed and
Mhm.
what you actually heard from her mouth, that's
Mhm.
sort of where I want to concentrate, as opposed to anything that anybody else may have said to you about what they believe she might have said. Okay.
Okay.
And it seems to me that your main interaction with her was not when the initial call came in to respond to, a man who was unresponsive in the snow. It was after you went back to the station in the engine and then came back to the scene for the purposes of the section 12 that you described. Would that be fair to say?
What did you hear from Karen? Not
And when
not
you
what
came back
was told to
to
you.
the scene
Heard from Karen.
for the section 12, it's also fair to say that the section 12 issue was your focus, correct?
Correct.
You had an order in hand, correct?
The police had it and they gave it to us when we got there.
Right. Okay. So you got an order in hand once you got there,
Correct.
which is what you expected to happen, correct?
Yes.
And your focus at that point is, okay, and I don't want to be too, flip, but we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Is that a fair characterization?
That is one way to put it.
And you
One way
wanted
to
do
put
it
it.
the easy way.
Yes, correct.
And you wanted to persuade Karen Reed that she should want to do it the easy way, correct?
Yes.
And after some conversation back and forth where she was initially resistant, she eventually agreed, yes, I'll do, not to put words in your mouth or hers, but to the effect of, yes, we'll do this the easy way, correct?
Did get her to agree to transport.
And with regard to her state of mind, I believe you had testified that she appeared to be very distraught,
Yes, correct.
going through a lot of emotions,
Yes.
grief-stricken,
Oh, that's one of them. Yes.
Grief stricken,
hysterical at times,
Yes.
hysterical.
raising her voice at times,
Yes.
crying
Loud.
at times.
I didn't see any actual tears, but
That
Oh,
type
of emotional display.
All right.
Didn't see
And
any
so
actual
in
tears.
terms of the only commentary that you heard with regard to her feelings or questions regarding John O'Keefe, it was the statements that you heard repetitively over and over and over again. Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead?
That was some of the things she was saying. Yes.
What were some other things?
And Your Honor, may we approach sidebar briefly?
Okay.
Very interesting. Loud, grief stricken, but I didn't see any actual tears. Did you see fear? Was she fearful? Man, oh man. Man, oh man. I don't know. Every witness that comes on the stand makes me have so many more questions. Let me just fast forward a little bit because I come back because I just want to keep it rolling. I just want to keep it moving. I just have
So
questions.
I think, Mr. Yannetti, I think you need the actual,
Yes. I was going to ask a couple of questions first and then grab it.
but it's right there for when you need it.
Lieutenant Woodbury, on
Thank you.
your direct examination, you testified a bit, and I don't want to block a jury here, I'm sorry. You testified a bit about the injuries that you observed on John O'Keefe when you first arrived at the scene, correct?
Yes.
You testified about the swollen eye,
Yes.
and you also testified about the scratch marks that you saw on his forearm, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to show
Let
you,
him
I'm going
finish
to approach
the
in a minute to show
question,
you what has
then
been marked
answer.
M for identification. And when I hand it to you, please keep it to yourself and look at it, and then look up at me when you're done, okay?
All right. Interesting. I don't know any of the
I'm
evidence
having
that they
reviewed
had.
M for identification. Do you recognize what that depicts?
Yes.
What does it depict?
That is Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
Does that
Mr.
photograph
O'Keefe's
appear to
right
be a
arm.
fair and accurate representation of the scratch marks that you observed on January 29th of 2022, sir?
Yes.
I would offer that, Your Honor.
Okay. That will be our next exhibit. And again, we'll have to maybe renumber. Counsel, before you leave today, we have to figure out how to keep everything straight.
Understood. And
They're having
with the court's permission, Your Honor, may I have that published on the screen
evidence
for the jury?
numbering
Yes.
issues due to how much evidence they have.
Now,
Um,
on direct examination, Lieutenant, hang on.
oh,
Let me have a
sorry.
moment.
Let me.
Good point.
Okay, I'm just going to take it off
I'm
the
going to try
screen.
to get out of your way. With regard to
This is an
the
autopsy
injuries that you
photo.
described on direct examination, Lieutenant, I believe you would mainly concentrate.
I'm sorry, I need to, please take this down for me. I need to discuss outside.
We weigh 54 pounds. Oh my goodness. 54 pounds is massive. What is that? Is that like the 6-month check-in for that puppy, Ray? I took that off the screen as fast as possible. That is an autopsy photo. And I'm pretty sure there is a problem right now that one that was shown, is so YouTube, I'm sorry. I did not know that that was going to happen. I did not know that they were going to show that on the screens, and I didn't know that was going to be, there should have been a warning for the jury that there's a picture coming up that, is not just of a house, because for the last 3 days, every picture and video that we saw was of a home and snow. Oh, yeah. So I think that was an issue for Law and Crime, well, Court TV, I believe, panning over to it. I believe it was an issue of what my 22 weeks. Holy crap. Yeah, wow. This happens sometimes. I don't know exactly where the court stands when it comes to certain autopsy photos. There should have been not a trigger warning, but just a warning of what's to come. I think it's safe to say that the majority of human beings know that during a possible, an alleged murder trial, images like autopsy photos, disturbing imagery, hard to look at pictures of the crime, of what happened, of the aftermath of what happened, will pop up. Again, my apologies. I did not know that was going to happen, and I took it off as fast as I could once my brain registered what we were looking at. That is going to happen, and that's one of the reasons why people don't want trials broadcast. But America, and we should know how the judicial system is running and working and doing it, like we should know, but there also needs to be these protocols set so that someone's reason for their life ending does not need to be shared. I don't want to call it personal photos, but these are photos that don't need to be shared throughout the internet. They do not need to be passed along. They do not need to be added to profiles and people's stash. Not everyone is mentally healthy, and there's a lot of reasons why photos like this do not need to be shared. The jury has left. Their discussions about probably what just happened is going to continue. So let me just, again, I am so sorry. I did not know that was happening. I did not look forward into any of this. I probably should have. Apologies. Dang. All right.
So the pooling of blood.
With regard to
Okay, so we are obviously getting into some of the more heavier topics of this case. So I think from here on out, quite possibly just keep your brain on a swivel when it comes to what you are capable of handling and what you're not capable of handling. There's no reason to trigger yourself to stay up to date on this case with me. I don't want anyone to feel any sort of pressure to do so. Yikes. Okay. Breath in, breathe out, breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out.
Ms. Coda, the session, please proceed.
Okay.
So jurors, I can assure you that by Monday, I mean, we're in really good shape. It's an organizational situation that I have to deal with. So we've been dealing with that. We appreciate your patience and we are in good shape. And Ms. Dianetti, if you need the exhibit, it's here.
Terrific. May I have it published again on the camera?
Yes.
Now, Lieutenant, with regard to the injuries that you observed, did you notice any lividity on the body when you were looking at Jonathan?
Being hypothermic, he was very pale.
I just
overall.
want to say,
So the pink,
I just want to say, just a fair warning, imagery like that might pop up again. You might see a little bit of it here and there. I don't know what is approved and not approved by this court to be shown. But if I come across anything that I am not comfortable with showing, I will do my best to get it off of screen as much as possible.
the skin wasn't pinked up yet.
But
So
we
it's
will
hard
be
to
getting into
really
topics
judge
like
the rest of the skin that way until it's warmed up and
the
much later
cause
into the
of
scene.
death.
You are familiar with the term
Yep.
lividity, though?
Yes.
Could you just explain that to the jury?
That's like bruising. So the pooling of blood in lower sections. So for like a cardiac arrest patient, when they have lividity, it looks like bruising on the underside where all the blood has pooled. And we did not really notice that.
But it's not actually bruising from an injury, it's just the blood being
It's settling down. It's the same thing, yes.
One at a time, please.
One at
Yeah, so it appears like bruising, and bruising is basically pooling of blood under the skin. So lividity is just gravity-fed pooling of blood under the skin. And it usually happens what is the section of the body that is lowest.
I see. Okay. Now, with regard to the scratches that you've testified about and that you now observe on Exhibit 382, I believe, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your testimony on direct examination was that you observed them in the forearm area, correct?
It was the right, like forearm to arm. I was trying to signal like right up here, but yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I guess that's my.
Yeah.
It wasn't just on the.
Just, not just, it was the arm area.
I can't. I can't
Mostly
with
what I noticed was
interrupting.
forearm, but there was some,
I can't with
around there.
interrupting.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it wasn't just below the
no, it
elbow.
wasn't up just below the elbow.
There was a lip some above the
Yes.
elbow as well?
Yep.
That's consistent with Exhibit 382?
Correct.
I missed that moment, Ron.
Yes.
No
Don't
further questions.
talk
Mr. Lally,
over.
anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Lieutenant, thank you very much. So you're all set.
Okay. All done. Good. He's all done. I couldn't handle it.
Next witness, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth would call Mr. Daniel Whitley to the stand.
Dan Whitley. Daniel Whitley. More paramedics? Lots of paramedics. Lots and lots of paramedics. Fire department paramedics.
Clerk, reach your right hand, please. You so swear the evidence you in the court and during the case now and here to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you
Please
please
state your name
and spell your
and
last
spell
name?
your last name.
Daniel Whitley, Whitley.
And what do you do for us?
I'm a paramedic firefighter with the Town of Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire?
I was hired in March of '06.
March
And
of
prior to
06.
that, work with the Canton Fire Department, did you work within that same field in any other capacity for any other company?
Yes, correct. I worked for American Medical Response out of Brockton as an EMT intermediate and a paramedic for 5 years.
And you're a certified paramedic, is that correct?
Correct.
And how long have you held that certification?
It was, I believe, November of 2006 that I got that certification.
And
The
is there any
accents
sort
are
of
thick.
continuing educational component or research?
This case takes place near Boston.
Yes, we recertify every 2 years. We're required to hold basic life support card, which is just generally CPR, and advanced.
I'm gonna take a guess that he was on a 24-hour shift, and around 5 a.m. he woke up to shovel the apron of the fireplace. If he was on a 24-hour shift, or he got called in.
It's cardiac life support, which is ACLS. It's more dealing with EKGs and how to run resuscitations, cardiac arrests, things of that nature.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to January 28th into January 29th of 2022, were you working with Canton Fire Department on those dates?
Yes.
What kind of shift were you working?
24-hour shift, 8 a.m. to 8 a.m.
And where were you assigned on that particular day?
The Ponquag Station, Station 2.
The Ponquag Station, where is that located within Canton?
The north side of town on Southmont Street.
And how were you assigned to a specific duty or a specific?
Yes, I was assigned to Ambulance 2 with Jason Becker. As I was a field training officer at that point, and he was just finishing up his field training after he recently became certified as a paramedic.
And now, at some point shortly after 6 a.m., were you aware of a call or dispatch in regard to Station House 1?
Yes, we had just returned from a previous call about 5 a.m. and heard the tones go off. Actually, we were in the day room, which is where we basically it's the living room of a fire station, and we heard the tones go off. We heard the police going to Fairview Road, and we just kind of sat and were wondering what was going on there.
Now, you yourself, you and firefighter Becker, were you dispatched to a call as well, approximately 6:41 or 6:42 a.m.?
Yes.
And at the time that you received that dispatch, what, if anything, were you aware of with regard to the prior call that the other ambulance was?
So when the tones go off between the two stations, we're able to hear what the dispatch complaint is, what they're going for, and it came in as, I believe, CPR in progress in the snow or something to that regard. So we knew it was a fairly serious call that Station 1 had gone to.
Now, when you received your dispatch at approximately 6:42 a.m. or so, what was that call in regards to, and where did you respond?
We were dispatched for a Section 12.
And as far as your assignments within the ambulance between yourself and firefighter Becker, with regard to this call, who was doing what?
I was driving. He's what we call the tech, the lead paramedic on the case. That's just generally how we operate.
And from your response, or you're driving from Station 2 to Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you observe or experience en route in between the two?
At that point, it was snowing pretty heavily. We were coming down Chapman Street, getting ready to take a right onto Fairview. We nearly slid off the road, making the turn onto Fairview. It was snowing that heavily, and I don't believe the roads had been really plowed or treated or anything like that for us to. So it was pretty slippery.
So they haven't
Now,
been
in
plowed.
addition
So with
to
their
ambulance number 2 that you and firefighter Becker were in, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatus was dispatched to this call as well?
There was Engine 3, which is the District 1 engine, and at least 2 police cruisers, and then another gray SUV kind of further down from where we parked.
Now, when you arrive in this area on Fairview Road, what, if anything, do you sort of observe as far as who's there when you arrive?
No, I don't think
my lieutenant,
was I muted?
Lieutenant Woodbury.
I think I was muted, so I'm just going to say it again. This is leaving me with a question because were the roads plowed or not? This gentleman just said that they almost slid off the road because the roads were not treated and or plowed. But the previous witness says that John O'Keefe was about 8 feet from the snowbank, which happens when the plows plow the road and the snow gathers and like gets sprayed off on the side of the road on the curb and leaves big snow. So were the roads plowed or not?
And Sam Park were there.
And they were on the engine, is that correct?
They were on the engine, correct?
Now, beyond sort of personnel from your department, you mentioned that there were some police officers there as well.
Yes, Melanie and Sarah, and then 2 other females, at least 2 other females.
And the other 2 females, where were they when you first sort of get out of the ambulance?
A few yards ahead of us, a few dozen yards ahead of us, I'd say.
And were there any other vehicles beyond sort of first responders that you observed on?
Just that other gray SUV.
And so I guess my question is, where were the 2 females that you observed in relation to the gray SUV?
Near it, maybe in front of, maybe one was inside. There were 3 females there.
And at some point while you're on scene, you learned the identity of the patient, correct?
Yes,
And what was the name of the patient?
Karen Reed.
And you had some conversation with Karen Reed that day, is that correct?
Yes,
And do you see Karen Reed in the courtroom?
I do.
just describe as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
She's seated right at that table right there.
I'm sorry, if you could just point as to where she's.
Right here.
No, just as record reflect identification.
Okay.
Now, when you first sort of arrive on scene, who, if anyone, is the first person that you saw?
Lieutenant Woodbury and Sam Pluck.
And following that conversation, who, if anyone, you speak to?
Probably briefly Lieutenant Mulaney, but more, I'm sorry, not Lieutenant, Officer Mulaney and Officer Sarah.
Now, following your conversation, well, let me ask you this in general terms. When you respond to a call for Section 12, what's sort of the protocol that you go through in regard to that?
Whether it's a Section 12 or any call, basically, the lead tech generally takes over immediate patient care, goes over, assesses. Usually the partner will go over and try and find out background details, try and find not only, well, especially for a Section 12, you want to get, the tech will get, which is Jason's role, the patient story, and then I'll get everyone else's story.
And at some point, you have a conversation with Ms. Reed as well.
Oh, yes.
And where is that in relation to vehicles on scene? So where is that initial conversation?
The initial conversation, she was very upset. She kept saying, so we had a Section 12 written, and that was to take her to the hospital because she made threats against her life, saying, I don't want to live anymore. If my husband dies, I don't want to be alive anymore. And myself,
I don't want to live
and,
anymore if my husband dies.
Jason and Lieutenant Woodbury were kind of like, well, that's seemingly,
What? They weren't married.
I don't want to be alive anymore. And I don't want to live anymore. If my husband dies, I don't want to be alive anymore. And
They weren't married.
myself and Jason and Lieutenant Woodbury were kind of like, well, that's seemingly more in the lines of normal grieving process after something traumatic happens to a loved one, whether they're going to die or not. We kind of didn't feel like it kind of led to that level of a Section 12 to have her transported to the hospital. So at that point, I exited the ambulance and I went to speak with Officer Saraf, and I said, this kind of doesn't. If we want her to be at the hospital, get a full eval, we're going to need more than just. If my husband dies, I want to die, because that seems just like normal grieving things to say. And so,
Oh my gosh.
I went back to the ambulance. He went. I don't know where he went. I don't know whether it was cruiser or what. But he came back, notified me that her.
Sustain.
And from that conversation, did you receive more information or more clarity as to statements?
Let me just pause because, oh my gosh, this is what I was just saying. Like the police, a police officer should not be able to just Section 12 somebody because they said something, right? Depends on what they said, obviously, but what's the validity? Where, like, is this just natural, like a natural part of grieving? Is this how she would naturally grieve? This man is saying that was too much. A Section 12 was too much for what was actually happening. He keeps saying that she said her husband. They weren't married. So this is very interesting. He said it was too much. He said, if you think that that's necessary, we can take her to the hospital, get a full eval, but like, what, you want to Section 12 somebody for like having the in the moment, like real time reaction to seeing her boyfriend not breathing, heart not beating, turning blue, turning purple, bloodied face, swollen eyes, black and blue, scratches on the body, in the cold, frozen. Section 12 her? This questioning is only making me go, police cover up. The police have too much power, not enough education, and too much freedom. That's what I'm getting from just that. From just that little story that he told gave me just the vibes of he doesn't like those cops because probably something like, I don't know, this is all alleged, but probably something like this has happened before. He's probably been on some sort of type of mental health call like this before. And he's like, what are the cops are like? These cops are doing bad. These cops are not good. I don't know. This is not helping, in my opinion, not helping the prosecution.
Yes, Officer Sheriff had said that.
Objection.
So not what he said, sir. So
We
You
were
are
informed
unmuted.
that,
Objection.
I'm not sure.
so you can't testify to what somebody else told you. You can when there's no objection regarding what Ms. Reed told you,
Okay.
but you can't testify what anybody else told you.
Okay.
So when I say sustain, that means you have to stop.
Okay.
And the lawyer will ask another question. Okay. Thank you.
He's like, all right, I'm just telling you the truth.
Ryan, so, firefighter Whitley,
He's
at some
giving
point,
off, I'm just saying what
this is
actually
due to
happened. I don't
conversations
know.
with the defendant.
Why don't you want to hear it? This is
describe
what
sort of
actually
her,
happened.
Demeanor, any observations you made in relation to that as you were speaking?
Yes, she was very upset. She kept asking if there was any chance. She kept asking us if we knew if the person ambulance 1 had transported was alive or dead, and we could not speak to that. She asked if somebody could be alive in the snow without a jacket for many hours. And at that point, we were just trying to give her any hope that whomever A1 transported was still alive. And we kind of just talked about far off hypothermia cases where, kids have fallen in rivers and been submerged for many minutes, maybe even hours, and survived with no neurological deficits. So we were just trying to give her some sort of hope on the way to the hospital that there was a chance that her husband could be alive.
Now, at this point, what, if anything, did you know about sort of the relationship?
I
with the patient,
agree,
and Ms. Reed
Ray.
And the patient ambulance 1 out of the transport trees.
She identified him as her husband.
Those
And is that something that she said
markings
once or more than once?
Many,
on
many
his
times.
arm were a lot different than what I feel like were being described.
Now, she asked you
Those are not
questions about his
scratches.
status and made specific reference to.
That's way more than a
clothes,
scratch.
Is that correct?
The only thing I recall is asking if he could have survived without a jacket.
Now, as far as these conversations that you had with Ms. Reed, where did they occur in relation to the ambulance?
They were in the back of the ambulance.
Okay, so
And,
this was all
if
happening in
anyone
the
was
back of the
present in
ambulance.
the back of the ambulance, beyond yourself and
Jason Becker.
And with reference to, you mentioned that firefighter Becker was sort of the lead paramedic or the lead tech on this, is that correct?
Yes.
So is there, from sort of his role and your role, what are some of the sort of differences in the duties and responsibilities in relation, we'll call it?
So for any Section 12, our department policy is there will be 2 EMTs, paramedics, firefighters with during transport at all times. That's both for our safety and the patient safety. So that's why it wasn't just 2 EMTs or paramedics driving to the hospital. I was in back with Jason, and Sam Park was driving.
Okay.
Now, as far as you testified earlier about observations of her being upset or distraught, is that correct?
Correct.
Was that consistent throughout your interaction with her, or?
No. There would be episodes where she would go from crying in her hands to all of a sudden perking up. She was crying about having to take care of kids, saying she couldn't do it. And
That's
I
fair.
was saying, you can do this. It's not as hard as it seems. She kept saying, I can't take care of these kids. They're not my kids and they're not his kids. That's when I figured out who ambulance 1 transported. And I was saying, well, it seems like you have a good, strong support system. People who came and helped you in a blizzard to help come find your husband.
Yeah.
She said,
Keep saying husband.
she asked me if I knew Carrie Roberts. I said I did. She said anybody who knows Carrie Roberts wouldn't say those things. And that kind of took me aback a bit. It seemed strange to say something like that after you were just crying because your husband was dead.
Take you back just within.
I was just kind of surprised.
If I could take you back within that just for a minute. So you had testified that during that her description, you sort of realized who was a patient in ambulance 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, made you realize, or who did you think it was?
I live in and grew up in the Ponquag neighborhood of Canton, and Mr. O'Keefe was known for taking on his niece and nephew after I'm sorry, I'm not sure positive of the relationship, but I believe it was his sister and his brother-in-law passed away. And it was something people admired him for, people looked up to him for.
He knew them.
So, but I was able to, I also, I moved into the Park Park neighborhood back after living outside of Canton for a few years. The O'Keefe's lived diagonally across from me. I never had any sort of interaction with him or anything. When I moved in, my wife was probably about 6 months pregnant and I had 2 toddlers, so I was pretty busy. I figured he was pretty busy. I never even had a chance to introduce myself or anything before he moved to Meadows, which is how I kind of figured out.
Your Honor, I object to this line of question.
Okay, next, sustain. Next question.
Now,
Okay,
you
yeah,
would also,
that fair. I object to this line of questioning. It probably could have happened a little sooner. The objection, because we kind of got all of it in. The fact that he is well aware of who John O'Keefe was. He was admired in his community because of what he did, which was taking his niece and nephew on as being their guardian after his sister and his brother-in-law both passed within months of each other, very traumatically with very young children under the age of like 12. So that is very admirable. And you hear talk about that around a neighborhood, especially if that man is a police officer in Boston. So very interesting. We did get a lot of information in. The objection came a little bit too late, but you almost heard some emotion welling up inside of him, recognizing that this was a respected police officer in his town. And, they grew up in very similar areas, and just haven't crossed paths really, but they probably both knew of each other. Very interesting. I really wanted to hear what he had to say next, but sustained.
mentioned during your conversation with the defendant that she had said some things about Carrie Roberts,
Small
correct?
town. I wouldn't say small town, but
And how is it that you know Carrie Roberts?
Well, Carrie lives around the corner from me.
Objection.
Oh,
No, I'll
You
allow
might-
that. Next question, please.
you might want to start objecting him before he answers.
How long have you known Carrie Roberts?
Just from moving back into the neighborhood, she would run the neighborhood block party, and she put out that she would like the fire truck there on the neighborhood Facebook page. So I volunteered to bring the fire truck to the neighborhood block party.
And was Ms. Roberts seen on Fairview when you arrived in your ambulance?
Yes,
So she was one of the other females along with the defendant.
correct.
Now, with reference to when you brought up as far as support system, and included Ms. Roberts within that, what, if anything, did the defendant say about Ms. Roberts?
Objection.
Sustained. Next question, please.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely helpful to object before you get all of the information in. Because you, as a juror, as a human
Now,
being,
this
you heard
conversation,
it.
that you had
Even if
with the
it's
defendant,
told to be
in the ambulance,
disregarded, it's still
about
inside
how
your
long
brain.
period of time were we talking?
20, 25 minutes.
So a good chunk of time
And
he was talking
Beyond
about.
what you've already testified to, what did sort of that conversation consist of, or what was the sort of tone and tenor of that conversation?
Again, we were just trying to give her any support. She was, once we were getting closer to the hospital, we
Objection.
So the tone and tenor. So what can you tell us about that? That's admissible, Mr. Yannetti. Go ahead.
the tone, she would go from being almost despondent to when she asked me if I knew Carrie Roberts, the only tone I can use to describe it is snarky.
Objection. Move to strike.
I'll strike that.
Snarky, not snarky.
Now, you transported to a Good Samaritan, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you, during the transport, where are you in relation to Ms. Reed from Fairview to Good Samaritan?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
During the transports, Ms. Reed is where within the ambulance?
I believe we have what we call a tech bench, which is a long bench. There's the ambulance stretcher, and then next to the ambulance stretcher is we call it the CPR seat, and then that's where Miss Reed sat. And then I was in what we call the airway seat, which is basically like a captain's chair behind the stretcher.
And in addition to yourself and the defendant, who, if anyone else, was sort of in the back of the ambulance at that time?
During transport? During transport, it was just me, Jason Becker, and Miss Reed.
So yourself along with firefighter Becker and, right?
Correct.
Who was driving you?
Sam Park.
Now, when you arrived at Good Samaritan, what, if anything, happened?
Miss Reed was asking to be able to see John, and I made the decision that I would run ahead to see if that was in the realm of possibility with the emergency room physician there. So I ran ahead. I came into they call it the code room at Good Sam, and I asked if the wife could see the husband. The ER doctor asked if she would be upset. I said if she would be upset if she was allowed to or not. And I said she's going to be upset. I believe she's going to be upset either way. He was asking if she would get in the way of the resuscitation efforts, and I said it's possible. She's very upset.
And so once you arrive at the hospital with the
You're
patient, where
allowed
do you
to be
go
upset.
along with Miss Reed?
It's not illegal to be
We escorted her
upset.
down to we call
Freaked
it
out.
the psych hall or the behavioral hall at Good Sam.
And about how long was it after you escorted her into the hospital that you stayed with her following that?
At least 10 minutes.
And during those 10 minutes, how would you describe sort of her behavior or demeanor during that time?
Objection.
No, he can testify to that.
He was giving the nurses a hard time about, I'm sorry, she was giving the nurses a hard time about having to get into a Johnny, about having to submit a urine sample. Even the air techs went to the physician who was in the code room to see if she could not have to wear a Johnny. And the ER doc said, no, if she's in the psych hall, she's a psych patient, needs to be in a Johnny. So
If you're
at that point,
in the
there was just a nurse
psych
and a tech.
If you're in the psych hall and you're a psych
We don't
patient,
usually
you gotta
leave.
wear it.
A psych patient with just a single nurse and a tech. And so we decided to wait until security had gone there before we left.
May I have one moment?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I was just gonna chime in with something. How would you feel? This is a question for anyone who's watching. How would you feel if you just came across your boyfriend or husband,
Nothing further at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Giannetti.
unresponsive, unconscious in the snow, and he gets taken to the emergency room, and then and it's not looking good, and he's a mess and he's covered in blood, and then you're told to just go home by officers, just told to go away, go home, he's going to the hospital, go home. And then you say, no, I'm not going to go. Like, you go home, and you just you can't just go away. And so you come back, and then you get essentially 5150'd in like a minor view. Section 12, you get taken into an ambulance. You get talked to about what's going on. Do you want to go the easy way or the hard way? Their words, not mine, essentially. Like, we could make this hard, or you can make this easy on us and just go. Because a police officer decided that you having emotions about what you just came across and what's happening to your life and to your loved one is a lot, and you're handling it in the only way you are capable of right now. And then you're in the hospital, and you're in the same exact hospital that he is in, your significant other, and you can't see him. And then they make you feel like a psych patient. It sounds like it's giving Hallmark movie vibes. It's giving Hallmark movie vibes. That's too much. That's too much. That's too much. And not once, not a single time out of all of these witnesses has alcohol or being drunk come up. Not once.
Eddie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Cross-examination. This will be interesting.
So, Mr. Whitley, when you showed up, you learned that Karen Reed was the patient that you were to deal with, correct?
Correct.
And it was your expectation that she would be going to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
One of the things that you do when you transport somebody to the hospital is you try to get a medical history, correct?
Yep.
Why is that important?
Oh my gosh.
Generally, we get pertinent medical history to pass on to the hospital. So if something were to happen where the patient wasn't able to describe their past medical history, it gets passed on to the next caregiver, which would be the nurses, doctors at the hospital.
More information is always better than less information, correct?
I would say so.
And with regard to Ms. Reed, did you take a medical history from her?
I assume Jason did.
Okay. Did you learn the results of that medical history?
You'd have to refer to Jason's report.
I may have a moment now.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Mr. Whitley, if I, I'm actually going to show you two documents with your permission. One would be Jason's report.
Okay.
And you were talking about Jason Becker, correct?
Correct.
The other is a police report from Sergeant Yuri Buchnick. I'm going to give you the second page of that.
So let's do them one at a time.
Sure. And you've asked for Jason Becker's report, so I'll give you that first, okay?
Okay.
And when I approach you, I'm going to hand this to you, and I just ask you to look at it silently by yourself.
Okay.
And then look up at me when you're done.
Okay.
In my opinion, this witness is already doing more work for the defense instead of the prosecution in general. So I don't know if they need to go too hard on him or just kind of make the hard questions seem easy. They need to make the hard questions seem easy as to not turn off this jury who's had a very busy day. They've had morning in court. They've had a view. They've come back. They had just had lunch.
Going to
Don't
collect that, if
do-
you don't mind.
I don't want
The
them to
first
do
report was
too
the
much.
NFIS report from my lieutenant.
Was Jason Becker's report included in it
Yes.
as well?
Yep.
Having reviewed those documents, does that refresh your memory as to the medical history that was taken?
Yes.
And what can you tell us
Okay.
about that?
Just lists multiple sclerosis.
What is multiple sclerosis?
Multiple
But it's a
sclerosis.
neurodegenerative disease where the myelin sheathing of the trying to think of the word here, but
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
no, I understand.
I'm sure you do. It's a disease.
It's a disease that's progressive and
Like a
has
degenerative disease.
neurological muscle control things involved with it,
And when you say progressive, that means it gets worse over time as you age.
as I understand it.
And that was the medical history you got from Karen Reed?
Correct.
I'm not further.
All right. So, sir, you are all set. Thank you, Mr. Whitley. Your next witness, Mr.
That was
Miller?
it.
Yes, Ron, call Mr. Jason Becker to the stand.
And I think that was a good choice. And I think that was a good choice because I think the jury already has questions as to why the police, Section 12, Karen Reed, when there's now a man saying that was too much. I don't think that was necessary. I think that was enough for the defense, for that attorney or for that witness to just be like, see? And also one more thing. Yep, multiple sclerosis. Okay. We're good. We're good. You know, like they didn't need to go in on him. They got their objections in. A lot of them got sustained. We did see so even though we have that information that he knew of John O'Keefe, he knew Carrie, he knew Carrie, so he's familiar with that group of humans. He still understood that this Section 12 call for Karen at that time, at that moment, was too much. And that's, I think, really all they needed. I think that's really all they needed from that witness. Good call. I'm not going in on him. I'm happy with that. I feel good about that for the defense team. He was not a great witness for the prosecution, in my opinion. As just a random juror who's chit-chatting along, it wasn't great. It wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good look. If we're supposed to support the cops and the EMTs and the paramedics, shouldn't they all have similar conclusions as to when someone's acting way too frantic? You know?
Please watch your step.
There we go. Another paramedic, I'm sure. Working a 24-hour shift. She got up around 5 a.m. to shovel. So just like if you say snow, shovel, apron one more time.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
First name is Jason. Last name is Becker. Becker.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm a firefighter paramedic, Canton Fire Department.
And how long
The
have you been a member of the
accents.
Canton Fire Department?
5.5 years.
And prior to that, what, if any, other employment did you have sort of within that same field?
I worked at Found Ambulance and South Shore Hospital.
How long did you work at each of those respective positions?
Found Ambulance was about 5 years. South Shore Hospital, approximately 3 years.
These
And with regard
paramedics
to
are
South Shore
very
Hospital,
much
what is
giving
it that
like
you did?
Peaky
I was a
Blinders.
nursing assistant in the emergency room.
The American
And
version of Peaky
With
Blinders.
regard to your work as a firefighter paramedic for the Canton Fire Department, you were a certified paramedic?
Fantastic. It's so
And when did
Massachusetts.
you first receive that certification?
October 2021.
And is that something that you receive, or when you receive that, is something that goes on in perpetuity, or is that something that you have a
Oh
continuing
wow, I'm pretty sure
educational
it has to
component or
renew every
research?
2 years.
Con Ed education, every 2 years you have to recertify.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to January 28th, 2022 into January 29th, 2022. Were you working on that occasion?
I was.
And where were you assigned? I'm sorry, what type of shift were you working on that occasion?
What type of shift?
Yes, like what hour to what hour?
8 a.m. to 8 a.m., 24 hours.
So 8 a.m. on the 28th until 8 a.m. on the 29th.
Correct.
And where were you assigned on that day?
I was at Canton Station 2, Ambulance 2.
And who, if anyone else, was assigned with you to ambulance 2 at Station 2 on that day?
Daniel Whitley, firefighter Daniel Whitley.
Now, at some point when you were working on the 29th, shortly after 6 a.m. or so, did you become aware of a call for station house number 1?
Yes.
And what, if anything, were you aware of as far as that earlier call?
As far as a man down in the stage, and I believe it was upgraded eventually to CPR in progress.
Now, at some point following that, approximately 6:41 a.m. or so, did you, your station house get a,
Yes.
and what that dispatch in regards to?
This is not me.
Psych eval,
This was the live
Section
feed.
12.
That must have been interrupted at that
And in
time.
addition to yourself and firefighter Whitley in ambulance 2, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatuses were dispatched by your department to that call as well?
Canton Engine 3.
And if you know, who, if anyone, was on Canton Engine 3 at that time?
Lieutenant Greg Woodbury, firefighter Sam Park.
Now, with regard to the ambulance that you were in with firefighter Whitley, what was sort of, let me ask you this, between sort of call volume, what, if any, sort of policy or protocol is there as far as who does what on a particular call?
We switch off.
And so on this particular call that you were dispatched to Fairview Road, what was sort of each of your respective duties and responsibilities between yourself and firefighter Whitley?
Firefighter Whitley was the driver at that point, and it was my tech is what it's called. So the next patient would be mine.
And so as sort of the lead tech on this, is that correct?
Correct.
So as far as the lead tech's role, what, if any, duties or responsibilities do you have in regard to writing a report?
It's my report. That'd be right.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
I'll give a document just after review that with us.
How are we doing out there, folks? We really don't have that much court to go through. I just kind of
The first report up here is the
skimmed
engines.
through.
Second one would be mine.
Do you recognize the first few pages of that? as
I
the
think
engine
this might be
report and
the
last
final
report,
witness of
correct?
the day.
Correct.
And that's your
from what it
report with
looks like.
relation to this dispatch and this call, correct?
Correct.
May I approach the engine?
Yes.
I want to seek to introduce in the minutes next.
So both reports through this witness? Is there any objection?
May I just take a look at the DA's copy?
Sure. Take a look-see. Tomorrow, I'm gonna probably start at 9 tomorrow. Just we're now like a day behind, so we missed Monday.
Okay.
So we'll start at 9 and we'll kind of do what we did last week and just trying to catch up. I really wanted to wake up this morning, but I couldn't. I was so utterly exhausted. I couldn't even open my eyes. I was so tired. I think I just got like really hot and dehydrated. And it happens to me a lot. I am not like, I'm good. about staying hydrated on a normal day, but if something if something's going on, I'm just dumb. I'm just dumb about it. So I could not wake up this morning. I did a little snoozing, much needed. So we are just a little bit behind from that. But other than that, the weekend was actually really fun. We had a great time. We were at Saratoga Comic-Con, which was great. We loved that. We had a good time. Sold lots of stuff. Saw awesome cosplays. Saw a lot of cool people. Yeah, so that was really cool. All right, let's get back into the court.
With that, then, I would seek you to do some that as the next exhibit.
Okay.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, can I return the report to the witness?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Sir, when you first sort of arrive in the area of 34, when you arrive in the area of Fairview Road, what, if anything, is it that you first observe upon your arrival?
Come down the street or on scene?
Yes, come down.
Come down the street, see the light, police lights. You can see the fire engine, and which is, I believe I said it's one black SUV.
And where is it that
Who are you looking at?
you and the ambulance were parked in reference to those?
Who are you looking at?
I believe we parked. If the SUV was facing towards us, we parked to the left. I don't recall where the police cruiser was though.
And when you
Okay.
first arrived there, who, if anyone, is it that you first speak with when you get there?
When we got on the ambulance, I passed Officer Zarif and Officer Mulaney. They kind of briefed us, and then I walked over to the black SUV.
And when you walk over to the black SUV, who is it that you observe in that black SUV?
I saw two females.
And
Two
of those
females.
two females, do you see one of them in the courtroom?
I do.
Could you just identify as where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
It's right over there, the jacket on.
That's the record of like identification. Of the defendant.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, with respect to
Everyone knows what
the
Carol's-
defendant, Ms. Reed, where within the vehicle is she when you first come up to the vehicle on the field?
But I remember she was in the front passenger seat.
And what, if any, knowledge that you have?
Yes,
as far
these
as,
accents are
defendant Ms.
incredible.
Reed and her relationship to the earlier call that ambulance wanted been dispatched?
Very little. I think we had gotten briefed that she was the wife of the previous patient.
And was that something that she had stated or something that somebody else had stated? Where does that awareness come
I believe it was one of the Canton police officers that said it.
I'm sorry, what was that answer?
It was one of the Canton police officers.
Okay.
Can't believe that. It's like all the way, like can't believe officers. Like it's like inside the throat.
And so when you walk up to the car, what is it that you say to her? What, if any, conversation you have with Ms. Reed about it?
So I went up to the window and introduced myself and just kind of asked what was going on.
And how did she respond to that?
She was kind of, she was distraught. She was crying. She kind of told us that. the
Were
statement
there
she may have made,
tears?
she didn't mean it because of the current events that she had just gone through.
What, if anything, did she say about that? If anything, did she say about what she had gone through?
That she had just done CPR on her
Speak
husband.
up.
And so she referred to him as her husband as well.
Yes.
And
Oh, he's
this
catching
conversation
on.
that you had sort of at the side of the SUV, was that through the door, through the window?
Why
From
was
our
she
call to the
referring
window.
to him as her
And,
husband?
at
They
some
were
point,
not
This
married.
conversation moved to the end.
Correct.
About how long was the conversation at the vehicle before the conversation shifted to the end?
5 to 10 minutes.
And as far as your dispatch for a psych or a section 12, correct?
Correct.
Can you explain to the jury sort of that process, just in general terms first, as far as what does that process entail?
And when we get on scene
Yes,
for a section,
yes, please.
we go on scene, we kind of look at the environment, see what the environment's like, see if the patient's cooperative, uncooperative, what their demeanor is, if there's any obvious self-harm. If there's none, kind of go up and talk to them, get a report, and ask them some basic triage questions.
What are those
And is that
basic
sort of
triage
policy or
questions?
protocol or what you followed in this instance with Ms. Reed?
Correct.
Now,
Did he just say
beyond, what she
sure?
had indicated to you initially, what, if anything, was she asking you during the course of your conversation with her once you were in the end?
She kept asking if he was dead or could he be dead
Yeah,
that
is he
something that
dead?
she said once or more than once or something?
more than once.
And could you describe sort of the tone of her voice when she was saying?
It was pretty, it was kind of like it was a rapid kind of pressure speech. She was just a lot repetitive.
And as you were speaking with her, what, if any, observations did you make of her facial area?
I just don't know the
She had
definition
blood
of,
on her
like, the
face and her neck and
tone
her
of her voice.
mouth and neck and chin.
With regard to sort of
What's
any
going on?
earlier suicidal statements, what, if anything, did she say in relation to that?
She said she made him because she just went through traumatic events, seeing her husband dead, and she had no plan on acting on it.
So she said she had no plan on acting
Now,
on it. It was just
Pursuant,
sort of like
to a Section 12 call, what, if anything, are you doing as far as documentation
her
goes
reaction.
with respect to vital signs, things like that?
It depends on the situation. In a situation of misreads, I took a regular just vital signs, pulse oximetry, see a heart rate. But for someone like a female psych patient, it's more verbal.
And as far as any of those sort of vital signs and things that you took, what, if anything,
Okay.
abnormal did you note in regard to that?
There's nothing too abnormal. Just the heart rate might be a little bit high, but within normal range.
Could you please keep your voice up, sir? Thank you.
Sorry. But the vital signs, her heart rate was a little high, it was 98, but it was nothing concerning.
During the time that you're having this conversation with her in the back of the ambulance, how would you describe her demeanor?
She would have periods of calmness, and then other periods she would appear agitated because she didn't want to go to the hospital. But all in all, she was cooperative with us.
So she was pretty calm
Now, at some point, there is she's
with them,
cooperative, correct? And
telling
ready to go.
her
Eventually, yes.
You
she's
say
gotta go to the
eventually, was there
hospital.
some conversation related?
We kind of mentioned to her
health
basically what a
evaluation.
Section 12 is. And unfortunately, she'd have to come with us involuntarily.
So you're explaining the process to her, is that correct?
Correct.
Eventually, she agrees to go, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the transport goes, who, if anyone, is in the back of the ambulance with her during the transport period?
Me and firefighter Whitley,
And who, if anyone, was driving the ambulance to the hospital?
firefighter Park.
And which hospital did you transport Ms. Reed to?
We went to the Good Samaritan Hospital.
Now, during the course of transfer to the hospital or transport, what, if anything else, did Ms. Reed say with reference to children?
She was talking about children. She
sorry
wasn't sure, and
guys.
she didn't know she'd be able to take care of them.
That's
She was worried about
issues
that.
with the stream video itself.
Yeah,
from
she's worried
Friday.
about who would take care of the children if he was pronounced dead.
And what, if anything, did she say about herself in reference to the children?
She didn't think that she could take care of them on her own.
Now, as far as this
No, it's not
other
about the
person in the
microphone
patient
placement.
from
It's
the
about
earlier
your
call,
voice.
how did she refer
Sorry,
for that
but it's
person in
your
relationship
voice.
to yourself?
She was calling him the husband.
She's calling him husband. So Karen was
Now, with
consistently
reference,
referring
to
to
this
John as her husband.
particular-
They were not married.
With reference to Ms. Reed in this conversation, what, if anything, did she say in regard to the last time that she had spoken to who she called her husband?
She had said that they had gotten into an argument. She was sad because that was the last thing she had said to him was the argument, but she didn't go into detail on what the argument was about or what was said.
That's fair. No one is happy all the time in their relationships, and if something like this happens after one of
Now,
those
with regard-
arguments, but she's going to remember that, you know.
With regard to her speaking about children, what, if any, further conversation did either yourself or firefighter Whitney have with her in regard to that?
With children? I don't recall.
The other female party that Ms. Reed was initially with in the vehicle when you first arrived, did you know who that was?
I don't know who she was.
And at any point in time, subsequent to that, you learned?
I did.
Who did you learn her?
She was Ms. Carrie Roberts.
And with relation to your conversation with Ms. Reed on that day of January 29th, what, if anything, did you say about Ms. Roberts?
Objection.
Sustained.
Why would you ask that? Why would you ask that?
The-
No, of course not.
With regard to the sort of medical questions that you asked, from those medical questions, what, if any, questions would you typically ask someone with relation to consumption of alcohol or drugs?
Well, probably the psych assessment. I asked if she had taken any drugs or alcohol, and she denied it at that point.
She said that she had not.
Finally, the first question about alcohol. Ay, ay, ay.
Correct.
The observations that you testified to earlier in regard to her, and by her I mean Ms. Reed's demeanor, did that change at all during the course of your interaction with her, or was that consistent?
Demeanor, as in,
It's a poorly phrased question. I'm going to try and rephrase it. So, with regard to
What's
her
happening?
demeanor,
Is he tired?
throughout the course of your interaction with her, how would you describe that?
she was cooperative. Then she'd be calm, and then eventually she would kind of get a little agitated and repetitive questions. But she seemed distraught.
With respect to the person she indicated was her husband, what, if any, questions did she ask either you or firefighter Whitley or both in relation?
She was asking if he was dead, or could he be dead? Could he be dead? And she said, "Could I have hit him?"
Could I have hit him?
Was that something that she asked once or more than once?
It wasn't a lot. It was more of, could he be dead? Could he be dead?
So she
So
asked
somewhat repetitive,
once.
is that correct?
Correct.
Could I have hit him?
Just one moment, Your Honor.
You sure? Are you sure about that? Like, are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Are you for sure? It didn't come out as confident as all the other answers that he had. Also, there's so much activity happening in this courtroom right now. Like, there's all the papers and the clips and the stomps and the clink, blah, blah, blah. And the microphones are so sensitive because they think they're just kind of set up to pick up everything.
Firefighter, just my own clarification. You testified earlier that first arriving on scene and first spoke with Ms. Reed, she indicated that there was some statements that she said there were some statements that she did not mean, correct?
Correct. Suicidal statements.
And so, exactly. So my question is, that was in reference to the suicidal statements she had made prior to your arrival, correct?
Correct.
Not to any subsequent statements, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Rona. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You and I have met, right?
I believe so.
I wanted to go back to one piece of testimony that you offered on direct examination, if I may.
Sure.
You had, in response to a question from the prosecutor about the medical history and your question to Ms. Reed about whether she had had any alcohol to
So
drink.
much
I
noise.
believe your answer today was she denied having drank alcohol the night before.
At the time that she was, she could. I don't know if she drank alcohol the night before, but at that time I asked if she had any drugs or alcohol. She said no.
I'm sorry, if I just didn't hear.
Yeah, you need to keep your voice up, sir. Speak
Okay.
directly into
Sorry.
the microphone.
I asked her if she had any drugs or alcohol, and she said no.
Oh,
The
she
judge
had
is
any
not
drugs.
Well, she'd taken any drugs or alcohol. She said no.
Did you specify a time period?
I just assumed it'd be the last few hours for the reason why we were there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Unsure if she had alcohol days prior, but for the reason why we were there.
Okay. So was it your understanding that the two of you had an understanding of what you were asking?
Sure.
Objection, move to
Yeah,
strike.
yeah. So the objection sustained. It's stricken. Ask the question differently, Ms. Giannetti.
Thank you,
Right.
Honor. All right. So
Is it your
I guess
understanding that
with
she had an
regard to your
understanding that you
intent
two
and your state
understood?
of mind when you were asking that question, you were asking, had you taken any drugs or alcohol within the last few hours? That's what you meant to ask?
Objection.
So the objection sustained.
What did you specifically ask?
So when I ask a patient if any drugs or alcohol, I'm talking about at that point in time, an hour before, 2 hours before, not days before, weeks before.
Okay. So this was at 6:40 in the morning.
Correct.
Did you smell any alcohol on her at that time?
I did not.
Okay.
No. Oh, okay.
You would agree that she did tell you at some point that she had had alcohol the night before, correct?
No.
Okay. There have been allegations that she was like a point, like 2-3 blood alcohol content by the time she got to at the time of John O'Keefe, like being injured and falling into the snow. There was allegations that like her current blood alcohol content would have been like, what, 0.08 or whatever. And then earlier in the night when John was injured, it would have been like 0.23 or something like that. There were some wild allegations about blood alcohol. So this is really, really good. Like, we need this testimony. We need the information. We need the direct. This is going to be like the paramedics' view. We will probably eventually get the actual reports of her like blood alcohol content when she was in the hospital and took the urine test and all that stuff or whatever. But he did not smell alcohol on her. That's crazy. If you're 0.08, you smell like alcohol. If you're 0.08, you ain't walking straight and you smell like alcohol. Hence, like, how many states across the nation are like, you get a DUI if you're 0.08 or higher? Because, like, you're drunk. You're too drunk to drive. Wow. And he didn't smell any alcohol. He didn't smell any, and he was talking to her. He wasn't just like passing by her and like asking her quick questions. He was having a face-to-face conversation with her, and he did not smell alcohol.
So this is now, what's today, May 3rd of 2024?
Correct.
And this happened back in January, on January 29th of 2022?
Correct.
You were interviewed by a Trooper Michael Proctor on February 14th of 2022. Do you recall that?
Of course you were. Everyone was.
And February 14th of 2022 would have been a little bit more than 2 weeks after January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Your memory of what Karen Reed told you about whether she had anything to drink the night before would have been much better on February 14th of 2022 when you were talking to Trooper Michael Proctor than it would be today, correct?
Correct.
Because your memory doesn't get better over time, correct?
Certain circumstances, sure.
He keeps knocking that into the jury.
With regard to whether Karen had indicated that she took any drugs, you told Trooper Proctor she said that she had not, correct?
Correct.
With regard to whether she had had alcohol the night before, you told Trooper Proctor on February 14th of 2022 that she did consume alcohol last night, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to see a sidebar on this. Please bring that with you, please.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So they're going back to. Okay. So Trooper Proctor had lots of conversations with the folks on scene of this incident. Talked to everybody, what they saw, and he made a little report about it. All right, let's just Scoo and Boogie.
Did you miss anything? Did you not hear?
Did they unmute too early?
With your permission, I'll repeat the question.
Sure.
You told Trooper Proctor on February 14th of 2022 that Karen had told you that she did consume alcohol the previous night, correct?
If that's in his notes,
You were telling me
you
you don't.
exhausted as to whether you told him that?
I don't recall.
If you saw his report with your statements in it, would that refresh your memory?
Sure.
It's a two-page report. I'll give you both, actually. It's a two-page report. I'll give you both pages, but I have highlighted a line on the second page, so I would direct you to that. May I approach?
Yes. And take your time reading it, sir.
Yes, yeah. And please read it silently to yourself and look up at me when you're done.
Wow. Okay. So he told Trooper Proctor that Karen said she did have drinks the night before. Remember, this happened about 6 o'clock in the morning. And now he's saying in a court of law on the stand under oath that she said she did not have drinks the night before. So which is it? Who are you lying to? Who are you lying to? Did you lie to Trooper Proctor and help Karen get arrested and charged with this murder, or are you lying to the defense attorney in the court of law? Are you lying to the judge?
So I did say.
So, Mr. Becker, a couple of things. Wait for a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But also,
Sorry.
you have to keep your voice up.
Okay.
I'm close to you and I'm having trouble hearing you. Most of the jurors are further away.
And the way this works is I have to collect that from you and then ask you a question, okay?
So
I may approach you on.
Yes.
He doesn't know the process.
Having reviewed that document, does that refresh your memory as to whether or
He's in
not
the hot seat.
Karen Reed, strike that. Having reviewed that report, does that refresh your memory as to the fact that
Does that refresh your memory?
Does that refresh your memory?
it does.
Okay. And so did you tell Trooper Proctor on February 14th that Karen Reed had told you on January 29th that she had consumed alcohol the night before that?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Don't say sure. Don't say sure.
Is it fair to say that
We went through that with
when you were
Kate McLaughlin.
listening to her
Sure.
talk at times, that her speech was very rapid?
Correct.
And particularly when she had said the words, is he dead? Is he dead? She would repeat it repetitively, correct?
Correct.
And she was fixated on that, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the last interaction that she spoke about
Crystalline.
with,
Somebody's lying. Somebody's lying, Crystalline. Somebody is lying for sure. I mean, this is literally a cover up or a murder case. Like, did the police frame Karen or did she murder? Like, it's literally the epitome of somebody is lying.
whom you thought she
The
said her husband.
epitome of somebody. But
She
we
didn't
have
give you
to
any
figure
detail
out who
about that,
is lying.
correct?
She did
As the
not.
chattiest of
You don't know
jurors,
whether it was
the
an
jurors who
in-person
can talk,
communication?
who is
Uh,
lying?
That wasn't my position to ask more details about that.
Oh, I'm not criticizing you, sir. I'm just trying to get
And I'm
to
just
what your knowledge
inclined
was
to
in terms of
constantly
information
sway
you got
towards the
from her.
police.
So she didn't specify that it was
The
an
police are
in-person
lying.
communication, correct?
Yeah,
She didn't specify as to whether it was a phone conversation.
that's
did
just me though.
She didn't specify whether it was a text message exchange back and forth.
She did not.
That's
And
my
she didn't
bias. I
specify
put that out there
whether
for
it
everyone
was
to
An angry voicemail that she left, correct?
understand.
She did not.
But I am still very open-minded. They don't lie about everything.
No further questions. Thank you.
All right.
Just one moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
All right. We're going to do a redirect, maybe? Going through, seeing if they can get anything.
Sorry.
They are ready to go. For them, this was Friday
Nothing
night.
further for this witness, Your Honor.
All right. All right, Mr. Becker or Firefighter Becker, you are all set, sir. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Aw.
If you can leave that right where it is. Thank you, sir.
I think we might be done for the night.
Your next witness, Mr. Lally?
May we approach?
Sure.
Oh. Okay, they are approaching, and I'm just going to do. The bailiff is really chatty. Chatty with people over there. I don't know who he's talking to.
If you happen to see here or
Whether it was an angry voicemail that she left.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry.
But also,
Sorry.
you have to keep your voice up.
Okay.
I'm close to you and I'm having trouble hearing you. Most of
if you happen to see, hear, or read anything about running with another
Sorry. Okay. I just like to finish it all the way to the very end. Okay. So I believe the judge is going to call it a day, which is fine because we're gonna start tomorrow. We're gonna watch Monday, at least morning tomorrow.
It makes sense that rather than starting with another witness, figure it's a Friday afternoon, it's been a long week for you all, we'll excuse you at this point. So please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, disregard it and let us know. And have a great weekend. Monday will be a full day. We'll see you first thing Monday morning.
That front and center is Karen Reed. Did she do it? Did she not? That's what we're here about. And I think the judge is going to say a few things to the court, which I would like to hear. It looks like she is going to say a few things.
I think there's an exhibit in the witness stand. All right, because I've decided that it makes more sense to do exhibits the old-fashioned way because it's simply not working out. My suggestion is that we take what we have that have actually been introduced because I know you pre-marked nearly 600 exhibits. They have not been introduced into evidence. So we have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 14, 18, and there are additional that are in the 300s and 200s. So what I would like to do is take all of these, and I know Madam Court Reporter has been great about sticking around all late during the week to pre-mark things. This is more important to me that we get the record straight from this point. I would prefer the jurors to have the exhibits in order and not have numbers 200 and 300 in where they should be 15 and 16. So what I would like you to all do is take a look at the exhibits that have actually been introduced. Their prior numbers. If you have referred to them by their prior numbers, I will permit you for the rest of the trial to say previously referred to as 308, but now exhibit 15.
That'll be good
until
for
you feel
my
you don't need
notes
to do
too.
that anymore. So it
That'll
means
be
things
good
are going
for
to have
my
to be
notes as
renumbered. So, Madam Court Reporter, was there anything else we needed to discuss on this? Is there anything else you need from the lawyers? Okay. So
She said, well, I mean,
you've got a list of
to be
everything.
better.
Mr. McDermott's got a list of everything that's been introduced. Do you
would be
need
better
me to
for
do this, or
me.
is this something you can all do with Madam Court Reporter? And I want to come out and make sure it's right. All right. So why don't you all take
I want to come out and make sure it's
10
right,
minutes
because I'm
to
not
see if you
doing
can
that.
work this through. I'll come out at the end of 10 minutes, see what you have, and we'll make sure the record's straight. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does. The only thing that I would ask to add to that, Your Honor, is in conformity with the court's ruling as far as redaction to the run sheets and the run reports. I'm not sure if they've been stickered or not, but there are medical records with regard to both the victim and the defendant that would be in there, and I would ask for them to either be marked for identification or taken out at this point. Ms. McLaughlin indicates they haven't been marked yet, so I would just ask to sort of retrieve.
All right. So that's sort of the second point. I assume there are many pages of medical records. And one of the things I told you this morning is if records are going to be introduced subject to redactions, those redactions have to be done before they're introduced. It's going to take some time. So you have to be, if you're not in agreement, then you need to tell me what you're not in agreement over, and I'll have to decide it, but they need to be redacted beforehand. Just because this is a long trial, I don't want it to take any longer than it
Please.
necessarily has to be.
Please.
And we have to make sure all of the
Like
exhibits are in order, especially if they do end up numbering in the hundreds. So, all right. So you've factored that into your schedule. We've got many days that we won't be in session. It seems like a good use of counsel's time to redact records and talk. If you need additional time and we need to cut into the evidence, I'd prefer not to, but I need to know. All right. So I have received from the Commonwealth all of the videos that I requested. I received a flash drive today. When can I get the videos? I thought I was clear yesterday. Apparently I wasn't. So when can I get all of the videos that the defendants intend to introduce? I'd hope to look at them over the weekend.
We can do, it's not a matter of getting them onto a flash drive that's quick. It's just a matter of getting them to the court. So I would invite the court to direct us how, if you want to use the weekend, let us know. We work on Saturdays and Sundays.
So you can't do it today? You can't do it before you leave? I don't think your IT person's here, right?
I might.
Oh, if you can do it before you leave, if he can just download it onto a flash drive, that would be great. Do you want to go talk to him and see how long?
You might be able to do that.
We may be able to do that.
Why don't you talk to him?
Yes.
So she wanted all of the videos. She
All right.
wanted to see it all.
We won't leave until we give them to you.
That would be great. And Ms. Giannetti, yesterday you did say
We
that you'd
won't
also
leave
give
it-
me some idea on why you think they're coming in.
Sure.
Okay, so if you have that, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right.
I just want to make sure I'm very clear about what the court would like. We provided the double videos, the ones that we had put the good and Seraph cameras together. The court wants every single video that we intend to produce
Yes.
for the rest of trial.
Yes.
Okay, understood.
All right. And that's what I requested from both of you. I received, Ms. Gilman, tell me if I'm wrong, but Mr. McDermott handed me a flash drive today that said this was all the Commonwealth's video exhibits. Yes.
And that was after we met this morning, correct? Okay.
All right. So that'd be great. I just, I want to know what's on them. I was surprised yesterday and I
Understood.
shouldn't be surprised.
Understood.
And I don't like to be surprised.
All right. So I'll come out after you remark the exhibits. Do you need a break before then, Madam Court Reporter? Mr. McDermott? All right. Thanks.
Court, all rise, please.
All right, and that is the end of court for that today, which was Friday. Hi, Demi. How are you? I hope you're okay. I haven't seen you on your ladder. Yes, I have not been over there. I have been over here. And then I searched and games team and led me to here. Hi, it's good to see you. I hope you're yeah. I have been battling with going back over to Lily's Lottery. It's not that I don't want to. Starting this new job is different than what my life used to be, time wise, finance wise. Everything's a little different now. So I am hesitant to go back over there, not because I don't want to be with all of the scratch squatters. I want to be over there badly. Um, but I fell out of love. I fell out of love, and the discouragement was real. Seeing some folks in that world over there, um, thriving, which is great, which is good. Seeing folks over there thriving, it can be really cool. Like, I'm really happy for a lot of the creators over there in that world. But it can be really discouraging, and it kind of threw me off my game there. Plus I haven't won anything in like a million years. And when you see like someone do it all the time, like they're constantly like in the winning zone, it makes it very it makes it hard to try to, like, how can I compete, and it's not a competition, but how can I come close to that if I can't even get like half back type of energy? So I've been a little discouraged to go back over there. I miss everybody. I appreciate everything about that channel. And I want to go back over there, but I want to do it in a way that is good for me and is good for the channel and is good for the people, but I just haven't figured out what that is yet, unfortunately. I since February, I couldn't win anything and I couldn't afford it. Yeah, and it's not like I could if I wanted to and like not worry, which is great. I'm thankful and happy about that, but I stopped enjoying it, when it wasn't enjoyable. Even on like when I first started, even on like the worst days, it was still so much fun. And I want to expand past that, but I don't want to give it up completely. So I am going to go back. I just have to figure out the best way to do so that is best for me and for everyone over there as well. But for right now, I am going to be over here talking about court for the next 2 months, which is what is actually like bringing me a lot of joy. I don't have a lot of viewers yet. We just started. I don't have a lot of subscribers yet. We just started. But I am not in a competition with anybody to do me, like just me. I'm not. I can't compete with anybody to be me because I am me. So it feels a little bit. I can breathe a little easier over here, and so that's why. But I'm happy to see you. I might post over there just to kind of give everyone a heads up of what's happening, probably this week sometime. And if they want to come over here and check out some court, we had an interesting day. We had an interesting day in court. Daniel Whitley was a paramedic who I thought was, obviously the prosecution had to call this witness, but I thought he was actually a fantastic witness for the defense. He saw 3 women. A lot of the paramedics only saw 2. And he did not agree in the Section 12 of Karen Read as it was happening. He thought the police went too far by calling a Section 12, that she was just naturally grieving. She was going through the shock of this grief, this sudden occurrence. So there's a lot. There's a lot less tension than there was with the court and the defense team after the viewing. I hope the the jury issue is sorted out as well. There was at least one juror who may or may not have taken notes of the view, which they were not supposed to. So there was a lot of interesting things that happened in court Friday afternoon. Tomorrow, I'm going to be back. I'm going to say 9 a.m. I'm going to try to get it populated tonight. So it might be like 8:30 type of energy, but probably 9 with today court. So we are a little bit behind. Sorry. But life is lifing. Life is lifing, you know. So tomorrow at 9 a.m., I will probably be streaming until, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2, and then I got to go to work. So there won't be an afternoon stream, but Wednesday I'll stream all day and try to catch up as much as possible. But other than that, that stream, I don't have a where I'm standing and where I'm not standing as of right now. I'm split down the middle. Like when I started, I was split down the middle, 100% cover up, murder. I don't know. Okay, be good, you guys. Take care. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow. If you would like some background noise at work. All right, I'll be back at 9. Have a good day. Bye.